Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jack Bridges. I'm the Vice President for Electric Operations at PSE&G. Today we are at our Warren switching station in the township of Woodbridge. This station we're at here today takes the electricity from 230,000 volts down to 26,000 volts. This property here was flooded during Superstorm Sandy 10 years ago, and that's why we're here today as a look back. The station experienced 10 to 12 feet of water that came in from the river, and it took us over a week to restore the station, and then we were restoring our customers that had other storm damage throughout the state. Then we started a program called Energy Strong, and Energy Strong was to go around and rebuild our substations that were in the floodplains. This is a perfect example, and this is one of the first ones that was completed in 2015. As you can see behind me, all the equipment was raised and rebuilt to be more resilient and hardened during storm events and/or future flooding events. We also applied a lot of technology when this station was built. We have newer style transformers, newer style breaker compartments, and also this station can be operated remotely from one of our 4 distribution centers in New Jersey. Our reliability year by year has been improving, and last year was our best year in the last 10 years for our reliability in the state of New Jersey. During Ida, there was significant flooding throughout the state of New Jersey. If you compare Ida to Superstorm Sandy, there was 210,000 customers out during Ida, compared to 2 million during Superstorm Sandy. None of the stations that we raised and rebuilt flooded during that event. Therefore, customers remained in power, being fed from these switch stations and substations that we have out there. What we did was we were able to get the older equipment back in service at that lower elevation, and then we built this station, raised and rebuilt FEMA floodplain plus 1 foot to ensure that future events would not take the station down with severe flooding. And if you see in the yard, there's different elevations because the elevation of the yard is different. It does slope down, so it is higher at this end than at that end. Post-Sandy was around November 12th, was the all residents in the PSE&G service story were back in service. As we know, every storm is different. From a flooding perspective, we're addressing them, but right now, during a second Energy Strong program, we are adding more resiliency to our pole plant and our wires that are out in the field. It entails replacing poles, replacing wires or conductors that they can withstand, higher elevations of wind and damage that would occur during a storm. Right now, we've spent over $4 billion on these type of projects, and we continue into the future doing so. It'll definitely provide more reliable service to our customers at PSE&G. So from this switching station, we feed other substations. We feed customers in Woodbridge, Rahway, Carteret, and Perth Amboy. So we've got the neighboring towns around Woodbridge being served, those stations being served from this station. Also, we have petroleum, data centers, that also supply, critical functions in this region of the state of New Jersey. Okay, while we were doing this work, we actually kept the old station in service, and we designed it so we could work around the old station to build this new station, and it went in phases, so then we can safely and reliably cut the load over from the old station to the new station, and then the old station was demoed. We've done 36 other stations in our service territory. There's switching stations, there's substations, and what we do, we raise them as we have here. Okay, we built new, raised at a raised level. We've relocated them to other properties. And the third one we did was if we had capacity, we would eliminate that station. It all depends on the type and the load that was there, and we could eliminate that station and put the load on another facility. We have multiple lines that feed substations, so it's not just one line feeding a substation or a customer. So if one goes out, we have a second line that's in feeding them. We have a large pharmaceutical that's also fed out of this station, and there's multiple lines into that location as well. Okay, this switching station is fed off the 230,000 volt grid, and there are 3 feeds that come from that grid into this station. There are 3 power transformers in the station that reduce the voltage from 230,000 volts to this utilization voltage of 26,000, which feeds our stations and these larger industrial commercial customers. There's of course new technology with all the equipment that we purchased. As far as other technologies, we've deployed a supervisory control system, meaning we have line of sight back in the control room to every breaker that's in this station. We could also operate those breakers if need be from the station, but right now the station operates automatic in its normal mode. It's definitely smart grid. We've also, out on the grid on these lines, we put out switchable devices and that we can also control from the center. So if we lost a line, we could get a second line back into that grid. So we're able to do that remotely from our operations center.
Good afternoon. Sorry I'm late, but we had the Blue Mass over at St. Francis for all the 4 counties of the Metuchen Diocese with the bishop. So that was very important to be there. I just want to say how glad I am to be here at PSE&G, one of our very, very valued corporate companies in Woodbridge Township. We've got a terrific relationship with them. We've got Frank Lucchese on speed dial. It's funny, I just filled out this whole questionnaire. I think it was Monday. They sent me this whole lengthy questionnaire asking me about the services that PSE&G provides to Woodbridge and were we satisfied. And I just bit my tongue and said yes. I said nice things about Frank. But not really on a serious note, Frank and Jack and everybody else at PSE&G has been tremendous for Woodbridge Township. When I tell you in Sandy, the response that they had to us was absolutely unbelievable. We had mayors and council people all around, up in arms, and I said, I have no issues with PSE&G because they kept us informed of everything they were doing. They did what they said they were going to do. They responded as quick as possible to everything. I'll tell you a little secret. I would often ask Frank, where are you going next? Oh, we're going to Elm Street in Colonia. So I'd go out and knock on the doors in Elm Street, and they'd say, have you been serviced yet? And they'd say, not yet. I said, well, I'm going to get them here right away. And sure enough, they showed up at 4 o'clock that day. So it made me look pretty good with all of my residents, but I'm only kidding about that. It did work out that way once, though. I actually did knock on a door, and he was there like within an hour, and that was totally random and totally coincidental. But it's important when you're mayor of Woodbridge Township to know that you can call people when you need them, not just in emergencies, but we have a whole lot of economic development going on. That means everybody needs poles moved, everybody needs transformers moved, everybody needs upgrades for all their different infrastructure. And when you know that you can call the #1 electric provider in your township and get a response and get an answer and have them follow up and have them do what they say they're going to do, that is so vitally important to us here in Woodbridge Township, and we really appreciate that. I've got Carol Ehrlich and Marta Levsky here from the Carroll's the Redevelopment Agency Director, probably has more contact with Frank than even I do. And Marta is our Planning Director. Similarly, she's talking to Frank all the time. And again, Jack is a guy we've known for many, many years. I know him personally because his dad lives in Woodbridge, and I see him quite a bit. One of the best guys I know, just a wonderful, wonderful man. So I know him too, and so many other people I know that work here, the Kennys and Louie and all the other people. So it's a pleasure to be here, and thank you for your investment. Thank you for making this facility safer and stronger and more able to help us the next time, unfortunately, when something happens, which it will. You're even more prepared to serve the customers of Woodbridge Township. So thank you all very much. Well, we know they'll respond. We know they have the infrastructure and they have the physical assets to make sure that they're there for us. That wasn't the case when they were lower, and that wasn't the case many years ago. They had issues when, with flooding, just like everybody else did. So this is probably one of the most important pieces of infrastructure in our town when it comes to storms and floods and things like that. It's one of the very most important assets we have, and the fact that it's made safer and more resilient is just tremendous for us. We know we could always count on PSE&G to do everything they could, but now they're even more prepared. So I think that's great. Yeah, we were very, very impacted. We're on the water, essentially. We had about 180 homes bought out in Blue Acres, so that gives you the breadth of it, the size of it, the fact that we had so many homes impacted, and we're still actually buying homes that were impacted back then. We just are ready to close in another one when some funding became available. We had people without power for a few days, and we had trees down, and we had all kinds of, like everybody else really, but maybe a little more because of our location physically close to the water. It was heartbreaking because you don't want to see people struggle, you don't want to see people suffer, but they did, and that's difficult. We have 100,000 people, so it's a very big township, 25 square miles. There's an awful lot of people in the 10 different sections of Woodbridge. It's difficult when people are calling and calling and calling and say, I need this, I need that. Somebody's got to come out, especially people with medical conditions who count on the electric power to live because they need hookups for ventilators, or they need hookups for other types of medical devices or kidney machines. Who knows what I'm not a doctor, but that's difficult. But we were able to, like I said, when you can call Jack, you can call Frank and say, look, I got an emergency on Harrow Drive in Colonia. Somebody's got to get out there. They did. They did. So for that, I'm just totally grateful, because when we needed them, they were there. And this project makes that even more likely that they will be there in the future.
So what we did after we had this extreme flooding out to the river, our 230 yard is over there, and we bring over underground cables here to feed power transformers. There are two behind me here, and there's one over on the other side of the yard. So that's a 230 kV dielectric cable that comes over, and we go through these transformers and we reduce that voltage to 26,000 volts. To go over into the switch gear, and you can see all the bus work overhead that brings it in. So we have 3 feeds into that switch gear. So as we walk through the yard, you can see the overhead bus work and the associated equipment that will go in to this new elevated switch gear. And this switch gear are the circuits that go out and feed the other substations and the large industrial and commercial customers in this area. With the new solid state relays, okay, that are up there in the blue compartment and the black is the backup, 2 different types of relay, so we have redundancy, so not relying on one or the other. This breaker in here will operate if there's a fault out on the line. This one goes over to up by the Rawway area circuit.
How is this different than what we would have seen pre-Sandy?
Well, pre-Sandy, you had electromechanical relays here, which took longer to operate. You had all the breakers were outdoor, where here you're all contained inside this room. Like I said, the relays have quicker clearing time, backups, and we're out of the weather, which is a great plus.
Does this take less employees?
No, still have the same amount of employees.
New technology, right? New remote capability.
Yeah, we can operate these from our control center, which is in Somerset, for this area. And likewise, if we had a redundancy there, our other 3 distribution centers could operate this equipment too. So
where are they?
Up in, one is in Hudson County, one is in Passaic, and the other one is in Mercer.
Great.
So in here, the breakers, relays, on the outside, there's a walkway around the outside, and that's where all like the disconnects will open up and clear up the cables once they're out of service. But it's the latest in the technology.
How long did this take?
This probably took about 2.5 years to build the whole site, and then it was the demo afterwards.
And how was the cost of this site? Do we have a...
This site, just the distribution work was $25 million under the Energy Strong program. So it's not, they're not, the stations aren't by town unless it's a real small station.
just where you fit
It's
them.
just a
Yeah,
grid. It's
yeah,
just a
right,
grid where
right.
we have property, where we have transmission lines, where we can bring sub-transmission to feed those stations.